Hello and welcome back to Mega Man 5. When we last left off, we completed our work with the 8 Robot Masters, and now it is time to dive into Proto Man's stage and try to figure out why he turned on us. Here we have Proto Man's castle. I expect this will be a relatively short video. I anticipate just doing the first 2 stages and just trying to keep these video's relatively short, but we'll see how it goes. So we start off here on the outside. We have these flying robots and then the tigers that just kind of alternate for the most part, neither of which are particularly troublesome to deal with, as long as you're not, overstepping yourself. But here we just try to make sure we don't get knocked off the edge. And then we'll want to fire a shot right there. Very good. And just, I think, one more of each here for this initial section. Good. We'll let that top one jump past us, take that guy out, and get a nice little free extra life. That's nice. Now here, there's a number of ways you could deal with this. You could use gyro attack. You could kind of just try to convince them to jump down. I like to use the crystal eye and just bounce it off of the walls. Take the 2 of them out. And then it's not really necessary, but honestly, it's just a little bit easier to use the rush jet here, just because that jump is just a little bit long, so you always have the potential of missing it and falling down and having to redo this area, the screen, and it's just not necessary. Now here, I suppose we don't really need it. We're pretty much full health, but just for fun, we'll rush coil up, refill our health, and then we'll just refill the rush coil. In general, you need to be kind of stingy with your weapon energy. Once you get into these castle stages, your weapon energy isn't gonna refill at any point in time here until either the end of the game or you get a game over, which you don't want. So always be trying to pick up the energy refills. There's a little bit of a workaround to that we're gonna talk about at the end of this stage, but we'll leave it for now. There, we take our super arrow, fly across, and then use a second one to jump up. I prefer to stay in the top area here. And then we just kind of, usually I can time that just well enough where we sneak through, but it doesn't really matter because we have a health refill there. We gotta let that guy fall behind us. And pop down. I don't really find any of the weapons work super well against these AT-ATs here. So I usually just try and use the Mega Buster, which I also don't do a great job with apparently, but that's fine. So, carrying on. Here, we have kind of the classic Magnet Man blocks to deal with. Now, they're not super hard by any means, but you can kind of cheat through. However, I recommend having it ready and doing it immediately, because even when you do, you still usually have to jump at the end to avoid that block knocking you off. And then here, we should be able to coil up. You just have to hopefully maneuver it correctly that, there we go. You slip around the side. Actually, I still need that. And we will jump up here, and we will collect that. And this little guy is kind of goofy. I don't know if they're just sort of designed wrong, or if the intent is to sort of trick you into trying to move too quickly. But they just float around you in a circle, and they're really easy to take out so long as you don't move. If you do try to move, then they are very annoying, but we just won't do that. Let's see, we can probably do this, and that. Yeah, we can refill our gyro attack, why not? And it doesn't really matter what else we do. We'll do that. We'll get rid of this guy before we move on. But either way, we are just about at our first boss. So this is the first Dark Man boss. They don't have any further names, just Dark Man 1, 2, 3. And there's 2 ways to deal with Dark Man. So we have this water wave, which attacks him and blocks his shot, which is nice. And that's what we'll start with. We're not going to be too worried about our health for a reason that we will talk about shortly. But you can use it, as you see. All he does is shoot at you and then also drive at you. The more damage he takes, the faster he drives. But there's also a second way of dealing with him, which is to use Beat. Beat works against all of the Dark Man bosses, and is just really cool. Oh, you know, this is, I guess, the first time we've seen Beat. I'll have to talk about more about him in a second. But with regards to the weapon energy and our health right now, we need to finally talk about these M canisters, which I've pretty much been ignoring. We picked it up in, I think it was Stone Man or Crystal Man stage. So what this is I always thought they were, I think, like Mega Man tank, but I think they're actually mystery tanks. And what they do is they refill your health and also all of your weapon energy. But you are only allowed to have one at a given time. So if you have an M canister and it theoretically would spawn on screen in another stage, then it just simply won't be there. So you want to be cautious about using it since you can only have one and can't accumulate them the way you do the energy tank. But it also means that when you are in a situation where you are entering a stage that has an M canister, it is worth your while to use it so that you can refill and be able to collect the canister in the next stage. So with that said, we are going to use it here very intentionally, even if we don't really need it. Go ahead, Beat. Finish him off. Come on. Beat tends to take his time deciding when he wants to actually land an attack sometimes. But either way, we used that M canister, and now, or M tank, whatever. Now we will enter stage 2 of Proto Man's castle. And ultimately, we want to go to the left, but if we start by going to the right, there's an M canister. If you had one in your inventory that you had picked up in the regular stages, this just wouldn't be here. Oh, I say we take advantage. We have a little, I get very frustrated when that happens with you, Rush Coil. Okay, let's not do that anymore. I'm going to have to use it just to refill the coil. Anyway. Now we have a nice new M canister, and it's almost like we never used it at all. And we can continue onward and upward. Take out these guys. We'll just wait for him to come on target. Wonderful. Maybe I should use the arrow since we're running low on the coil, but I think we'll be okay. We do want to try and fill up that last little bit of energy we used for Beat if we get the opportunity to, but a lot easier to fill just that up than to have to fill up all of the weapon energy that we've used to this point. And that is not the first time, or the only time we will be using that little technique there, so. Something that's nice to have in our back pocket. All right. Let's move on. You do not want to fall through the floor here. Doesn't tend to go well for you, as you'll see here. Now, when we go through here, I wouldn't say it's necessary, but I find it much easier to use our Star Crash shield to protect against these guys. You can get a little... Ooh, that almost went poorly. Collecting the health kind of threw me off my timing. Anyway, you can get a little overly cautious, or feel overly safe using it sometimes and accidentally block an attack and then jump into the enemy themselves when you're not protected. So you still got to be a little bit cautious, but certainly makes things a lot easier. Now, we could do our shield, but let's do coil. Nice. So we weren't going to get there off in time. All right. Take these guys both out just so they're out of the way. And then we could use the arrow or the jet. It doesn't really matter much. We'll just use the jet. Jump. Oh. Let's try that again. Okay. And then we do crash this time. I'm too little. There we go. Now we have a little bit of a risk here. Hopefully this goes okay. You got to be very cautious not to go too far, which I just did. as I'm telling you not to. But obviously energy tank there, so fine enough, we'll take that trade. And then why don't I just get through here quickly, get back to where we were. Certainly doesn't take a long time. Maybe we'll use the arrow this time just for fun. Mix it up a little, you know? Wouldn't hate to get some weapon energy back from them as we're going through. But we should be okay. Certainly don't need it. Alright, let's just go. Oh, that was poorly done. Yeah, we'll just sneak right past. We're good. Make sure to... hoping I was fast enough, but got a little overconfident. Nope. There we go. Hopefully I don't demonstrate the mistake I was talking about earlier. Alright, good. That worked out okay. Now we just gotta get past our crystals guys again, who... yeah. Just gotta wait for their attack to fire, but make sure that you're low enough that you're not gonna hit them. You could also be underneath them and use, like, Power Stone or something. There we go. Let's just ignore you. Don't care enough to stay behind and keep dealing with you. So there is some health refill on that second rung as well that has the same problem. We don't need to bother with it. We're full enough. We can use either the arrow or I guess we can just use the jet to get this life back that we so carelessly wasted while collecting our energy tank. And pop down and continue. Get some of these divers here. Easy enough to take out. Or not. There we go. Let that shot fire across, and then keep going. And I guess we don't really need the health, but we might as well take it. Like I said, we always like to make sure that beat is full. He tends to be just so helpful against the bosses. That didn't work. Yeah, let's just back up. Otherwise, we're gonna put ourselves in a bad way. 0 for 2, not a good start. It's okay, we can just go 0 for 3. This one you can just let go by. He'll jump off the edge. And luckily, this Dark Man boss does not pose too much of a threat. Again, we have 2 ways to deal with them. One of which being using Beat, which we probably will try and avoid doing just so we don't use too much of Beat's weapon energy, but he just has the shield that rotates around him. And so long as you jump appropriately... Wow! That was not well done. That's okay, though. It's fine. We have a billion lives. We might as well use them. Well, let's see how this is supposed to look. That's better. Luckily, the napalm bomb will just kind of go right through the shield, and he tends to walk into it, so it works really well. You know, only downside is it doesn't do a huge amount of damage. So it takes a little bit of time, but outside of that, you're not really dealing with... Oops. Doesn't help when you slide. You're not dealing with too much difficulty. Beat will work exactly the same way as he did for the Dark Man boss, the first Dark Man boss, that, you know, he just kind of flies around and will attack right through the shield. So, fairly easy to deal with. But I think we will end things here. When we come back, we will deal with the second half of Proto Man's castle. But till then, see ya.